Iron and coal, these two materials were responsible for the creation of massive factories along the Meuse River. Esperence-Longdoz was one of the main players in the area, housing many enormous factories. After decades of heavy industry, the empty remains now sit abandoned and desolate. In this episode, we'll venture inside these remains and take a deep dive into the long history exploring the rise and the fall of Esperence-Longdoz. The terrain we are exploring today is a true industrial wasteland, spanning a staggering 33 hectares. We begin with the first remnants, the old central workshop of the large facility. Stuff was left behind here, including equipment and steel-packed minerals used in the production of steel. This in combination with the state of decay. Further on, we found ourselves in empty offices. This is the harsh reality of a bygone era. The tale of the company begins in the early 1800s, when the company of Esperence was established along the Meuse River by Frédéric Louis Berg. They specialized in coal mining and iron smelting, which became a growing industry due to the Industrial Revolution taking hold in Europe. Longdoz, based in the neighboring city of Liège, was a firm specialized in the rolling of iron. These two companies merged in 1862, forming the Esperence-Longdoz company. Next to the offices and central workshop, another section still stands, the Refractories building. This area serves as a sort of recycling and maintenance center, cleaning the equipment of slag to be recycled. Slag, a byproduct of steel production, can still be used in various other sectors. Despite its appearance of being old and long abandoned, this area was still in working order, as recently as 2009. Reaching the top of the tower, we enjoyed a great view of the industrial landscape of Serran. In the early 1800s, Serran was nothing more than a collection of small factories, but by the end of the century it had become a true industrial powerhouse. One of the main centers of heavy industry was the incredibly successful Cockerill company. In contrast, Esperence-Longdoz was much less successful at the time, focusing solely on the production of pig iron. Despite facing near failure at times, Esperence-Longdoz saw success in 1905. This progress was halted by the start of the First World War. When the Germans were on the losing side, the entire factory was raided of machinery, leaving it in a desperate and sad state. The future for the factory didn't seem bright when Belgium was liberated. On the opposite side, the power plant resides, and we will be focusing on this more impressive and intact part. The power plant is one of the last true traces of steel production on the site. Until 2016, the terrain was a true industrial landscape, even including a large abandoned blast furnace. Via the side of the boiler house we had to balance over some beams, evading the razor wire. Over some sketchy looking steel beams, we got closer to our goal. Now we were in the open air boiler house, where blast furnace gas was once combusted to generate steam. We had to navigate through the maze of catwalks to reach the station itself. After descending a few levels, we made it to an open door. This is the old boiler house, painted in a bright blue, making it quite unique. The blast furnace gas combusted here was coming from a byproduct from the blast furnaces. Although scrappers had gone through, making it quite a mess, incredible industrial details were still abundant. The power station was likely built during the late 20s, making it truly unique. After the First World War, the Reconstruction had begun. In rapid pace, the blast furnaces were rebuilt and the machines were once again installed. Modernizations were also put in place, such as 4 new generation blast furnaces. A new coking plant was also built across the river. And with this development, Esperence-Longdoz seemed to have saved itself once again. These times of prosperity were halted by the Second World War, when Germany invaded once again. With Germany's fast invasion, the factory was spared from the destruction of war, causing it to be put in operation again, right when Belgium was completely annexed. The board of the company decided in secret something quite courageous at the time. They decided to increase the number of people working in the factories to prevent the deportation of minorities and intellectuals. Hence saving many people who would otherwise be deported to Germany. When the war came to an end, the factory was run down and outdated. But freedom had once again been reinstated. We reached the roof of the boiler house. Besides the boiler house, an old school machine hall is also residing in this part. Let's head over to this part. The building is not just a power station, it's also a so-called blower house. Blowers look a lot like turbines for electricity. The only difference is that they produce hot air, used in the blast furnaces. Unfortunately, all doors were locked, so we had to improvise. Via a dark secondary boiler house, we made our way through a hole in the wall onto the gantry crane. Being over 10 meters high, we really had to be careful. Climbing on the ladder's cage, we could now make our way down into the machine hall. Some machines were already scrapped during this time, but in the past multiple bright blue machines were housed here, containing blowers and turbines. Some still remained intact. This was also the case for the old control room. After the war, the factory was estimated to be around 20 years behind its US counterparts. Something had to be done. a brand new state-of-the-art rolling mill was opened across the river, which quickly became highly successful. In pre-war Europe, with a growing demand for steel plates, Esperence-Longdoz could really shine, given that they had been specialized in this their entire lifespan. A new blast furnace was also commissioned, quickly followed up by another one. In 1957, blast furnace number 6 of the company was opened. This was, at the time, the most modern one in Europe. The company reached a true peak, and this could also be seen in just the amount of densely packed buildings. Problems arose due to its location between normal residential houses. We nearly covered all of the former factory. Across the rail, an unassuming part was located. This area was the old indoor substation of the power plant. Inside, a true surprise was awaiting us. This incredible control room was once responsible for the distribution of power. It's a true monument of history, left abandoned for decades. During the 60s, the steel industry was quickly changing. More investments and modernizations were needed to stay competitive. A massive project was announced. In the next episode, we'll follow the torpedo carts along the Meuse River up to this part, which today stands equally abandoned. And we'll finally discover what caused the decline of this massive industrial empire.